Hello and welcome to the Ognot YouTube channel where we talk about game design, world building, and digital immersion. Today we're talking about Pokemon Go's battle design. There's a lot to unpack with this topic, so this video is made to serve as a top-level view. Subsequent videos will unpack the game's common critiques, potential expansions, and rank various design aspects. But today, let's stick to the basics, the fundamentals often taken for granted. And to be clear, we will reference strategy, but this video is not made to help guide competitive team building. We're talking about how battling itself is built. Part 1. Main Series Differentiation. Pokemon Go's battle system is built around speed, which makes perfect sense for the mobility of a mobile game. Introduced in December of 2018, player versus player battling allowed teams of 3 to compete. They've since made various visual and functional updates, like in January of 2020 when they added the Battle League, which allows players to battle each other globally. Instead of having 4 moves like in the core series games, Pogo Pokemon have 1 fast move and up to 2 charged moves. The battles really come down to these charged moves. They can be avoided by spending 1 of the 2 shields allotted per battle. So victory usually depends on firing off a charged move that will do the most damage. The strategy of these moves then centers anticipating an opponent's use of shields. Or the opponent can choose to switch their Pokemon out for another, but if they do so, are unable to switch again for 60 seconds. More powerful charge attacks take more time to charge, so the goal is to bait your opponent into wasting a shield to block a move that wouldn't have hurt them that much anyway, in order to leave them without any shields when you fire off your most powerful charged attack. Something that might be an adjustment for main series players. The type effectiveness chart has been rearranged. First of all, there are no more immunities. Ground type attacks can hit flying type Pokemon, poison type attacks can damage steel type Pokemon. Standard resistances decrease damage taken by a multiplier of 0.625, whereas attacks that were formerly immunized have a damage decrease multiplier of 0.39. In the same regard, there are no abilities, nor are there held items, nor status-inflicting moves like sleep or paralysis. There's also no difference between physical and special attack stats. These choices make sense to keep Pogo's battling centered around reaction speed, as opposed to taking strategic turns. And even if they tried to recreate traditional turn-based battles, why not just play the main series game? This is the explicitly mobile version. Not to mention all PvP battles are time limited to 4 minutes, at which point the player with the most health points remaining wins. Compared to traditional Pokemon battles, another difference that might go overlooked is the fact that your opponent isn't told the name of the fast move you're using against them. Instead, they are only told if something is super effective or not very effective. That makes sense because for as fast moves are, it would be visually distracting to be constantly presented text every time a fast move is used. But while that makes sense, it should be acknowledged that this choice creates a bit of a learning curve for new players. If they don't know the move being used against them, it's a bit harder to respond. For instance, if you don't know the move being used, but you do know it's super effective against your dual type Pokemon, you only have partial context as to which other Pokemon you might want to switch into. In fairness, the animation of each fast move indicates its typing, whether it be spraying mud or dropping chunks of ice. Separate from fast moves, each of the 18 Pokemon types have their own unique animation for charged moves. To be specific, there are way more than 18 charged moves, but all moves of the same type use the same charged move animation. When activated, each one populates the screen with type icons, representing the respective type that the player has seconds to pop in order to inflict maximum damage. Failing to pop all the icons results in a decrease to the total damage that will be inflicted. The sequence and movement of these prompts is what sets each of these 18 charged move animations apart. Part 2. Battling versus raiding. Let's pause here to make a major distinction. Battling is very similar, but not identical, to raiding. When we went over charged move animations, that's specific to player versus player battling. Raids, on the other hand, have visually almost identical mechanics, but with some functional distinctions. For one, there are no charged move animations in raids. Because raiding happens at gyms, the players have to go to that physical location in the real world. So right away, we can understand that doing away with symbol popping animations has sped up the process, in order to accommodate how this public location is likely less amenable to longer stays. Within raid battles, there are two types: gym raids and boss raids. Gym raids are when the gym is claimed by an opposing team, and the player battles them in order to clear the gym and add their own Pokémon to now defend it. Those Pokémon are then left behind and the cycle repeats itself. Gyms can have up to 6 Pokémon, but players can only add one of their own Pokémon to a gym, the other 5 coming from players of the same team. Players are incentivized to leave Pokémon at a gym because the longer they do so, the more Pokecoins and in-game currency they can collect. So it's very cool that a player can battle another local player with only one of them actively participating. It's a fun mixture of active and passive play. Because there are no charged move animations in gym raids, that also means the gym defender avoids being prompted with the option to use a shield. If they were prompted to use a shield, that would deprive them the capacity to be passive. The gym defenders are typically not in the proximity of the gym, but regardless of their proximity, they have no option to engage in the battle. The only interaction they have available to them is that they can be alerted that a Pokémon at a gym needs some attention, to which they can respond by sending them a berry to regain health points. However, these long-distance berries have a decreased effectiveness. While shields are not available in raids, the raid attacker, aka the player, has the option to swipe left or right in an attempt to shirk the raid defender's charged move in what's called a dodge. This can only be anticipated by noticing the animation of the defending Pokémon itself and gauging its patterns. Obviously, raid defenders don't have this option because the other player isn't in the battle. A boss raid has all the same mechanics as a gym raid, but instead of taking on a team of up to 6 Pokémon, there's a limited window to challenge a singular Pokémon of exponentially increased power. The power of these bosses is indicated by the number of raid boss emblems appearing beneath the boss itself, like a star rating system. And unlike PvP battles, raids can be taken on by multiple players of the same team. That incentivizes going out and playing with friends. It's also nice to be with fellow players in person while also seeing them and their Pokémon within the raid. It fleshes out the immersion when you're walking around with fellow players and then also see them and their Pokémon within a raid. Another differentiation between battling and raiding is that both fast and charge moves have their effects changed. As a whole, moves do more damage in raids. Furthermore, moves that boost or drain stats lose those secondary effects in raids. The final major difference of moves is that moves in raids can be boosted if they're used in a complementary weather. All of these differences between player versus player and player versus gym battling demonstrate distinct philosophies. PvP is for strategic playing, whereas the strategy of raids is done preemptively, by selecting a team that can do the most damage in the shortest amount of time. Also, PvP is about one player versus one player on their own time, and raids are designed for adventuring with friends during specific hours. Battling is further baked into the game's overworld through rocket battling. The franchise's most iconic villains infiltrate the map by floating in on a hot air balloon or by popping out of a Pokestop they took over. Defeating Team Rocket members is the only way to try and catch Shadow Pokémon. These Shadow Pokémon have their attack power greatly increased, offering a competitive edge. And frankly, they just look cool. A recent twist to rocket battles were championship challenger battles. These characters replaced Rocket members at randomized Pokestops. But the twist was that their teams were inspired by actual ranking members of the competitive Pokemon Go battling scene. Even more than the Rocket battles, these battles against characters that looked more like your own felt closer to unavoidable trainer battles in the main series games. Most of the time, the overworld map feels pretty lonely. You can't choose to see your friends on the map, likely because that would be a safety concern with the all-ages approach. Seeing trainers in this AI battle capacity provided a satisfying immersion we hope is revisited. Now that we've outlined the basics of Pokemon Go's battle design, we can get into deeper analysis in future videos. So stay tuned for more discussion on game design, world building, and digital immersion. Subscribe to the Ognaut YouTube channel and follow on social media for updates.